say 30, 20. I think works well on an N64. It goes down to 15. So it has to run at 60, and then Thomas Engel basically had time, and when we got the chipset, because we were also doing the hardware design together with the Nintendo guys, right? So so we had the advantage that the very first chip, the first prototype chips which came off of the assembly line, actually didn't go to Miyamoto's team in Kyoto. But we drove down, Thomas and I drove down to ArtX, which nowadays is AMD, down in the valley, and basically did the first tests on the first working silicon of the GameCube chipset. And so they gave us that so that we could hack around in it. And then we heard from Japan that they wanted to do the Space World unveiling in 19 days. So basically we said, okay, let's be crazy here and let's get a completely playable level above the second Death Star up and running in 19 days. And that's actually the true story. So that whole second Death Star level was absolutely real. There was nothing fake there. And we threw it together in 19 days. That was probably the most grueling 19 days of my life. So that's a little background story to Rogue Leader.
We have some more questions, sorry. To John here, who has the idea for the filmed Cannon Fodder intro?
The Cannon Fodder intro?
Yeah.
So the intro was actually done. The intro was actually done after we finished the game. Some fun. So I had an idea for a song, which was the war song, and I went to Richard Joseph's house, and we over a day or two we turned my idea into a full arrangement. Richard, as usual, fantastic production, added horns, etc., and then basically when the game was finished, we took the team out for a day out in a field to make like a video, like we were Madness or something, like a pop group. And that was really fun. And we hired a half-track machine with a driver. We hired some military uniforms for the day. We found a lady who had a field locally with some poppies in it and asked if we could use it. And we bought some plastic guns from the toy shop. It was brilliant. We edited it in a day. The whole thing cost like £500 to make. The video was brilliant. So, yeah, that's it. Just a bit of fun. Day out for the boys is what it was.
I have to interrupt a little bit because, hi there. John, I just want to say thank you very much because in 2016 we met at Gamescom. And we had a little talk in the retro area, and actually you sang the Cannon Fodder song live. I played the accordion. I won't play it now. I have it just here for
yeah, I remember this. It's fun, yes.
I really found the YouTube link. Where can I share it? In the chat.
Oh, you found the link of us doing this thing?
Yeah, that was awesome.
Well, I didn't know that actually existed.
Throw it on the Discord. There you go.
Yeah. Okay, then. We'll have in Discord now. Just sorry for the interruption, guys.
That's all good. That's all good. Also, I'd like to welcome the guys from the SceneWorld podcast, AJ and Jörg.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you.
And of course Bernhard.
And Martin. Martin is also from SceneWorld.
Yeah, I'm. Yeah. Not only working for Richard Löwenstein.
Yeah, he's everywhere.
He's dancing on all shows at once. Right. So in the middle of the night, he's doing music for Richard, and before he's Skyping with me, organizing interviews and stuff with pioneers like you guys. And we actually spoke to some of you already. So
yes, Richard, I feel like it was just a minute ago we were talking.
Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah, tomorrow again, right?
yes, exactly, yes.
Yeah.
Or for example, John Hare, which was just mentioned.
Yeah, but it's really a pleasure to listen to all these legends sharing stories, which most of which I've never heard before, and so I just enjoy sitting here and listening, taking notes.
Yeah, Bernhard, I just went through the shop and found this type of game, because it's not a game, it's a mission CD or mission diskette. I've read that this one, you wrote the story for Battle Eye Mound of Kronos.
Oh, really? Did I?
Yeah. I did find out. I hope it's right.
I think so. I did a lot of stuff besides this, the story for Battle Eye 2, I remember, but for this one, ooh.
I think have a look. I think there's...
Yeah.
You should see it. Yeah.
Layout, yes. I did the story with Stefan Piasecki, who wrote the book, which is somewhere behind me. I think it was a very, very interesting project because we had a standalone version of this one, Moon of Commerce, and it's different from the second one, which is very hard to play, which we packed into all levels for. We have addressed as well as this one. So we did something for the Amiga 91, and there were just diskettes for which we placed this one. It's this time it was very easy, so we had copying discs with our maps on it and put it on the Amiga, and that was quite interesting. Yeah, so I like very much the fans still love these maps because we thought it was too hard, but they all managed to play them and had a lot of fun with it. So the desert was a very hard one.
I make a big jump because I have another game here which I found that is in your and it's a totally different company. This one is published by Eidos, and I think it's Virtual Excitement, the
yes
deal. Yeah.
The owner of it was a computer store, a little computer store that's a compy shop based in Mülheim. And the owner was the sales director then at Blue Byte, and after this founded this company with Stefan Piasecki, who did these stories. And the first title was this Acta Europa, which is a little bit of Battle Eye 3 like introduction with video sequences, but it was a real-time strategy done by two guys, which they I think was for East Europe, something Polish team, and they released this one. And I did something with the Eidos video player, which was very buggy at this time. It was horrible times to make real-time videos, and that was my part to solve technical questions with the video player at this project.
Yeah, we have a...
Oh, sorry, there's another game I have to mention to fit in. Dunkle Manöver, a game I never played. It was just in our shelves. I hope it's okay to not have played it. Or is it better to play it?
I think it's a very interesting title. I saw in my company, which I founded when I left Blue Byte in 1996. We did a lot of experiments, and most of them went wrong. I think Dunkle Manöver was one of the better ones. It's a strategy game in tactical round-based. We have very good background graphics over there. It was really nice to look on, but the gameplay is not so good as well as the controllings. Because you have to spare on ammunition and items and everything, and was not so fun to play. It's very, very tactical game. You have a lot of thinking before you're doing one move, and there's a kind of background story in there. There was the first title after a little one, which I did for Peter B, former. And yeah, it's a reason. The first reason for my company was to make, as I said, massively multiplayer cyberpunk roleplay, and then no one listened anymore, and was totally crazy to do this in Germany. And so I went to what I did before, strategy games and so on. It's not one of these. And there's the second part also, right? Dunkle Manöver 2, which follow up. Yeah, nice one.
And we have a question for Becky. how come you participate at a Space Invaders tournament, and have you ever played again this game after you won?
What was the first part of the question again?
You participate at a Space Invaders tournament, and have you ever again played this game after you won?
After playing the Space Invaders tournament, the Nationals, and winning the championships, I pretty much stopped playing that game. I think I may have played it like 5 or 6 times since then. It's been 40 years, so yeah. I went and played other games.
Becky, you can play a round of Space Invaders against Willy, because Willy is a big Space Invaders Atari ST expert. No, Atari VCS 2600 expert, yeah. He always has a high score.
Well, my score was 165,200 points, which is after 1 hour and 45 minutes of play in front of most of the nation. So, and also,
he's just a local hero. Forget it.
You know, you can play that game with, if I remember right, you can play it with a game mode with the enemy shots are invisible, where the invaders are invisible or your own ship is invisible. I remember there were so many game modes on the old 2600. I wonder if Willy has played those other game modes. They make it incredibly difficult.
Well, some of the game modes are just not fair. Like invisible lasers, no. That's just not fair. But the mode that we played for the championships, you had to play game 1, but the difficulty was B, so it made the base twice as wide. And that is the mode you had to play. So it was it was a high difficulty because they wanted us to only last like 20 minutes or 30 minutes on the screen and then the whole contest to be over. They had no idea that 4 out of 5 of us were exceptional players and we could just play and play and play until we got bored or fell asleep.
To all participants of this great round, if you want, ask questions. It's no problem because we can't ask everyone at every time, and the chat is exploding again. One question for Richard from Darrison667. It was mentioned how hard it is to do parallax on the Amiga. How did Richard handle such a good effects on Richard R? And Ultras heard Richard R has a killer soundtrack. Can this be confirmed?
Actually, parallax scrolling is not that hard to do on the Amiga. What is probably hard to do on the Amiga is having parallax scrolling with some perspective stuff going on in the background. So if you've got just two 2D planes going on, that's pretty trivial on the Amiga 2. But
on the Amiga 2, I mean, let's be very clear here.
Well, no,
parallax scrolling on the Amiga is nasty. Unless you want to do a playfield.
No, you've got double playfield mode. You can actually do it. You just have to cope with 8 colors or 7 colors per playfield.
Yeah, but that sucks.
And on the Amiga 1200, reshooter is for Amiga 1200. You've got like on the Mega Drive, you've got like two playfields of 16 or 15 colors, and the thing about reshooter is that I implemented a perspective scrolling thing, which adds some kind of depth to the background, and this is kind of nice. Which it's a technique using the Amiga's built-in copper coprocessor, which can alter different attributes of the on-screen presentation on each raster line. And I won't explain in detail. If anyone's interested, he can email me and I will happily explain. And also everyone can email Oliver Lindau. He's in fact the guy who explained to me how the technique works. And that's all. The rest is just hard work. So it's no secret. It can be found by Googling how it is done. And yes, I personally think reshooter wouldn't be the game it is without Martin's music. So it's probably better if Martin is talking about the music, since he's the one who composed and and did it.
Here's the question: if Reshot Proxima 3 follow the theme of such amazing soundtracks?
No, it will be better. Much better. We have heavy metal music this time. I mean, Reshooter is great, yeah, but it has only one in-game soundtrack. And this time we will have each stage will feature its own track, and also
Virtual
I persuaded
and
Martin
Descon,
to.
huh?
Sorry.
Virtual and Descon are always also on the board.
Oh yeah, right. I thought it might be a good idea to have some guys from the demo scene on board this time, since they are very proficient doing music on the Amiga, and they know how to create atmosphere with they've proven it a dozen times in several demos, and I thought it might be a good idea to have them in a game this time. And so yeah, we've got like 3 experts of Amiga music, and but the main man really is Martin. He's doing the in-game soundtracks, and he's doing one soundtrack for each stage, and he does not hate metal music, but he's never done it on the Amiga before, and I persuaded him to try to do guitar-based music on the Amiga, which is pretty hard to do. I've learned, but yeah, he did it. So the heavy metal soundtrack will be very special.
Yeah, and you know, I heard a small preview of that before, and I wanted to ask Martin, how does he get that to sound? Because it doesn't sound like you would imagine, you know, Amiga heavy metal to sound. You know, you'd expect it to sound very synthesized and whatnot, and it doesn't. So,
actually, it's a mixture of self-made recordings and cheating a lot, because the 4 channels on the Amiga restrict me for metal music in any way, because if I want to do some music which does evolve, it does not work actually, because I have strict regulations from Richard which say don't use this big samples, don't use 4 tracks, just use 2. And I'm not that clever as Chris, who just left the chat, which is not that fine.
I'm still here.
Are you here? That's just not visible. Just not visible. But I think I remember there was back in the day a similar story with Ramiro Waka and Chris Hulsbeck. I remember I read on High Voltage Sid Collection that Chris had to do circus music for circus attractions, and Ramiro Waka had to do the music for rock and roll, and they both disliked the genre of the other game. So I wonder how much is there about it.
Well, to be honest, I didn't like both. I don't know about Ramiro, but there was some back and forth. This was like the last year of me doing C64 stuff, and it was quite a bit of work, and I had already kind of moved on to the Amiga, so we just shared the work, and I was just happy that I didn't need to do all the stuff for rock and roll and not all the stuff for circus attractions. So, yeah.
But you did rock and roll for the Amiga, right?
I did the title music, and I think maybe one of the in-game tracks or something, but Ramiro did a lot of the other ones, and yeah, so I don't exactly remember even which pieces. When I listen back to it, I cannot even tell exactly which pieces were Ramiro's and which ones were mine. In some cases I know exactly, but not in all of them.
Chris, you did a guitar-based song for Metal Law on the Amiga, which was actually sounding pretty metal.
That was fun.
For the time, at least.
I'm always up for a challenge.
In terms of you not liking genres, I remember when you had to do the title track for Master Blazer, which has this jazzy random stuff. You absolutely hated it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't like certain genres of jazz music, particularly the ones where it seems to be just chaos of notes and not like a nice melody. But I can appreciate some jazz music, and luckily you gave me enough freedom to do that title music. There's still enough Hulsbeck in there, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Getting back to Martin, because he didn't actually answer my question about how he got the sound not synthesized and actually metal.
Well, it was just clever samples.
Clever samples. It's I had the pleasure to have Senad Palic to play the guitar for me, and I asked him to give me just the raw sample, the raw files from the guitar with nothing on, and then processed all in my Cubase, so that I could do things that you can do in actual DAWs, and had a lot of pre-rendering then and cutting samples so that they could be rearranged in Pro Tracker in only 2 channels, because we had the challenge this time to use only two channels, because Richard had complained that every time he uses his shooting samples, the music always crashes in any way. And if you have long samples, they stop, and then there's a lot of silence in it. And suddenly, and you know, a guitar is not just a short. It's all long tones too, and melodies and so on. And yeah, I think if I would be so clever as Chris, for example, I would program a program for it and have 7 channels, and here you are. But I don't.
Martin, you're making excellent work. I mean, I know I'm pretty cruel. I mean, I'm giving you just 2 channels, and I always force you to use less and less and less kilobytes of memory in order to have to put in more graphics and less loading interruptions and stuff like that. But I think what you did with like 150 kilobytes or 150 kilobytes, and it sounds like a CD. I mean, it's really CD audio quality where we're talking here on the Amiga, in game, together with sound effects, which was not that common in the 90s, and also some speech thrown in just for the fun of it. So the audio is really pretty special. And I mean, I once, when I presented Reshooter at some community event 2 years ago, and I saw some girls passing by who were not really, they were just coming into the show and watching all these nerds playing old computer games. But then they suddenly started to dance to your music, Martin, and that really shows how good your music is. It's just in-game music, but it's so good you can play it. I mean, if you've actually played it on some trance event, right?
Yeah, but not the Amiga files actually. Okay. I had to do some proper remix of it.
Yeah, but still, it's the same music. So you're really, it's really great work you're doing, and you're also doing it in your spare time. I mean, we're talking about a homebrew project basically, which we are not working like 40 or 50 hours a week, but only a few hours per week where we have the time, and so it's really amazing work.
This is now you've got, this is down to 2 audio channels, because you had 3, because you've got sound effects and you've got vocal work, you got all kinds of other stuff going on there at the same time.
Yeah, basically it's like that. The sound tracker that I use, it can handle 4 music which uses 4 channels, and it just takes away 1 channel as soon as a sound effect is played. The thing is that with guitar music, as Martin already said, the guitar riffs are quite long, and if the guitar riff just sets in and then you shoot or something explodes, then the riff is just cut, and it will not get back until the next note is played, and this just sounds very, very cruel and very terrible. Right. So the better solution, we tested it. I mean, it just didn't work, and the better solution is really to try to cope with just 2 channels. And this is the magic here. I mean, even if Martin only uses 2 channels, it does not sound like 2 channels. It actually sounds like 4-channel music. It's just using 2 channels. And but in addition to that, I can really put in firing audio and also big explosions all at the same time without interrupting
you can hear
channel music. So that's the magic, and it really takes a lot of work to get this to feel just right and sound just right.
Yeah, but maybe we should explain that what you just explained, Richard, is called multiplexing. And that was actually done pretty often for a video.
No. It's not multiplexing.
I mean, switching between the instruments on a limited number of.
That's not multiplexing.
No.
No.
He is resampling many channels to one channel.
Yeah.
It's like if you go to a studio, you have a 4-channel tape recorder. You put all the channels and then you make them into one channel and then again, so you can have something that sounds like 64 channels on just one.
They're talking about taking out one channel and then you hear something like
No.
Escalation. Yeah.
Yes.
In fact, you can do multiplexing the audio channels on the Amiga. Chris is here; he can explain. I don't know if Rudolf Stember's still around. He could explain even better, maybe. But this is something which uses the CPU probably too much to use it in game.
Interesting.
But I don't know.
Like the mixing would have been too hard. What we did in Tarek in game was 4-channel audio, but one channel was 90% reserved for sound effects. I only use it to double the melody sometimes for echo type effects. So if that channel would go away, you would still hear the full sound. It's just that when the sound effects didn't play, then you had a little bit of echo on the lead sound, for example. And then the third channel was not reserved exclusively for sound effects, but like for some bigger ones, like explosions and stuff like that. They would usually play like drums and bass, which is usually like on one channel. Bass and the drums together can be nicely played one after another in quick succession, and that sounds then like several channels. And then the other 2 channels were for the melody and the chords and things like that. So that's how we did it in Turrican.
The 7-voice thing you were referring to, that was essentially a complete Amiga sound emulated. So essentially a complete set of the Amiga sound emulated in software, which Jochen Hippel had actually programmed for the Atari ST conversion of Tarrican. And we had heard that because we wanted to get, at least for the ST, had to use the regular sound chip for the rest of the sound, but at least for the title piece, we wanted to have the original title piece from Chris. So Jochen writes that, the emulator, and then I had the idea, well, now that we've got an emulated Amiga sound on the CPU, why don't we bring that back into the Amiga, and then suddenly we can do 7 voices with that. And that's then, but it's so tight in terms of timing that when you listen to the Tarrican 2 intro title, and then there's a little gameplay sequence coming up at the bottom, actually the quality of the music drops, and only when you go into the sound menu, because we had to drop down the mix rate at that moment, only when you go into the sound menu where there's nothing going on anymore and there's just a Tarrican logo and a bunch of sprites basically doing the stars, that's when the highest mix rate is possible. So that 7 voice thing is gnarly. I don't know if Richie would be able to use it in game on the 1200 even. I don't think that's possible.
No, because it's a shoot 'em up, and a shoot 'em up is you want a 50 hertz frame rate, like all Factor 5 games have it. You want as many objects as possible to shoot at, and you want big explosions, lots of particle stuff going around, and also the perspective scrolling I mentioned, and all this takes CPU time. And if you've got someone like Martin who can do great music on 2 channels, why should I spend time having additional 2 channels for music if 2 channels is obviously enough for great music and sound effects? So I better spend it to draw great visuals, to have better particle effects and great gameplay, great control. So yeah, it's a matter of balancing the resources you have on the Amiga, and well, it's a decision to channel music. It seems to work.
Yeah, talking about shoot 'em up games, John, do you remember this?
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
That was way before I learned coding. I used your shoot 'em up construction kit, and I guess somebody else here in the chat also.
Too. Yeah, me too. It's something that I learned how games work, and also I already used the tool the whole time when I was in the games industry as a sprite editor.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, I did, because I was searching for a good sprite editor and I couldn't find any. And the cool thing about the Zoic was that you can do the sprites, you can do the animations, and you can still check out how they look composed. And
do you know anything about the history of how we made this game?
I know that this was probably the tools from WizBall.
No.
No.
So it was actually our first #1 game, although it wasn't actually a game. But it was designed originally by Chris Yates, my partner. He did all the programming, I did all the art, and we kind of designed together. And it was originally designed for me to make games, like budget games that we could make really fast, to make, to generate more income for the company. But we learned pretty soon that it couldn't make great games, but it was really good as a fun thing to allow you to make kind of not quite professional level games on.
Yeah.
So that's how it came about. And you're right, the sprite editor was actually really good. So
exactly.
We just focused in the end on making a good tool rather than a game out of it. Yeah.
It only lacked a proper save function. I always used a hacking tool.
You hacked in?
Yeah, I hacked in the tool and I saved it from a monitor.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun to make. That was a fun time making that game.
Yeah.
I think didn't somebody hack Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit to make it do a horizontal shooting game?
Yeah,
I only do vertical.
Very late. I don't know when. Early.
Hang on, we could no. You could do both. You could do horizontal and vertical.
Oh, really? I thought it would only do vertical. I don't remember.
No, it did both, and actually, you could make it still screen as well if you wanted.
So, John,
horizontal was a hack which came out later on. Which was possible in the Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit was auto scroll, pushing scroll, and still.
So, this Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit, when you made this, did you make it on purpose so the games wouldn't be too professional, so that people wouldn't compete with your company? Or did you make it as cool as you could?
We made it. No, we didn't make it. The intention was we could make amazing games like WizBall on it, but we realized quickly we couldn't. But we could make. We were making like we looked at Galaxy Birds earlier. We made Oh No. We made Insects in Space, and we realized we could make kind of budget quality games. I think you're right. Actually, you couldn't do horizontal scrolling. You could only do vertical, right? But you're right. It was push or auto. Yeah. So we quickly realized it wasn't up to the job, but it was a great tool. So, like all game development, when we made Megalomania, you started off flying around space, managing planets, and we ended up getting rid of the flying around space bit because it was really hard to do a management simulation while someone was shooting at you. So we had to get rid of it. So, yeah, but same with that game, a bit of software, it changed into a tool.
In Germany, we always called those games, when we were young, we called those games Zeug games, because Zeug is S-E-U-C-K in German, spoken as a word. And there were so many Zeug games on the Commodore 64. It is unbelievable. I don't know how many thousands of games there are made with your construction kit.
Amazing.
I think it is the most popular tool after Balderdash.
Yes.
I also learned another word from you guys earlier in the conversation. Someone said shmup for shooting up.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
No, I never heard this before. This is
never.
No.
I thought it was international. No.
No.
Okay.
New one on me for today. Yeah.
I have a question to Becky.
Huh?
Becky, I have a question to you. You were credited for Command and Conquer 3, Tiberian Wars, and you made some engineering programming. What exactly did you do there?
I was working at Electronic Arts at the time, and my job was to help get Command and Conquer 3's source code updated and building again. And then I did a lot of code optimizations. I wrote a bunch of the editing tools, the graphic engine, the shaders and stuff like that, just miscellaneous work. I didn't really do any game design. I just simply, made it run faster.
Thank you. And another question directly. You were also credited for Ultima 1 94 for an Apple II conversion. What was this? 94 was quite late.
Yeah, it was for the Apple II GS.
What exactly was the GS?
the Apple IIgs was the successor of the Apple II and the Apple IIc, of the IIe, and it had 320 by 200 graphics. That was the game that I did that Pastimes in Tonetown version with the really, really nice audio, because while the computer itself was kind of underpowered and it didn't have any video acceleration, it had the best sound chip you could buy. So I focused everything on music, but I got permission from Electronic Arts to essentially do a remastering of Ultima 1 for the Apple IIe and porting it to the 2GS. And I had all the art redone, so it looked 320 by 200, much better graphics. But the real beauty of it was the orchestral soundtrack. So when you go from room to room, you could hear this echoing. When you're walking through the dungeons, you can hear your footsteps echo. The music is done with orchestral instruments. There are people who do playthroughs on YouTube, so you can actually see the game in action. The visuals are basically looking like 1994 visuals, but the audio, you listen to it, you actually think it's something from modern day because it's that good.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
No, that's fine.
I was told to show this cover again because I think Danny likes to know how in hell you will spell or
how do you pronounce it? How the hell do you pronounce this game?
Apudia, Apidaya, what the hell?
Frank.
Very, very easy. It's just Apedia. Just Apedia.
There's an I, not a Y. Apidaya. Apedia.
No, it's Apedia, you know? No, it's actually, it was actually based on Libya, and some scientific term for a specific kind of insect. So it was all made up. And yeah, the correct pronunciation, whatever correct is Apedia, actually. Very simple.
By the way, Apedia was the reason for our first cancelled project that we had. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because when I get to the games industry, I always wanted to do action games or stuff, but we and our team were also forced to do some economic things. For those who don't know these games, that's our games for Excel lovers. And we always wanted to do shoot 'em ups, and that was always artworks I did in my applications and stuff, and it was a shoot 'em up, and most of the enemies were inspired by a book of insects. You know what's coming. From which I was presented some time ago before that, and then I went to an Amiga show. We always started doing mock-ups and stuff, and then an Amiga show was happening, and I was walking there, and I think it was Demoware or where was this published?
Initially, maybe, yeah.
And there was a demo, and I looked at it, and what the fuck?
Sorry for that. You know, 30 years later, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And never forget, winners save the planet. It's on the last page.
And it should be on every single CD that Chris puts out until today. Hopefully, you didn't forget
almost
about
all of them. Yeah.
Yes.
In fact, I upgraded it on the Tarek and Soundtrack Anthology as Winner Save the Universe.
Yeah.
Even better.
Was it inspired by the arcades? Winners don't use drugs?
It's something like that.
Correct, but obviously we were far beyond drugs. We just want to save the planet. You know.
That's even larger, yeah.
I have a question to Julian. You are involved with your team, I don't know, with all Factor 5 member or some, in Epic with Fortnite. What do you prefer, Fortnite or Unreal Tournament?
Oh my God. Well, that's tricky.
It's the
because
same company, so no problem.
No. But Unreal Tournament is Cliffy's. It's Cliffy's old thing. No, personally, I prefer Fortnite. So for me, I never really deeply got into shooters, I have to say, and I love the style that Fortnite is doing. The Battle Royale stuff really clicked for me to a large degree, but to be honest, what's so cool about Fortnite is not only the game, but basically, especially during the pandemic now, what is being done in Fortnite beyond games, right? All of the media events, all of the concerts and everything. The Travis Scott thing was just absolutely unbelievably mind-blowing. So I think Fortnite is becoming much more of a universe, or basically the metaverse, than a game. And going back to when we were dreaming about where could games at some point go, and we're talking about that when 3D games came along. I mean, that was probably in somebody's back of their mind. And over the years, actually, we as a team, we've worked, when we did our VOD work for Hulu and for Netflix, we did the Hulu VR app, for example, where you had your virtual screening room, and you could watch Hulu in a VR environment. And then when Oculus brought out their avatars, you could get these we use that to basically do co-viewing across Germany and the United States. So all of this stuff that is now going on in Fortnite and coalescing in Fortnite is really what we had been looking forward to and working on over the years anyway. So Fortnite has to be my favorite, aside from the fact that I think it's also making a little bit of my paycheck. So
my daughter, she loves Fortnite very much.
There were two more questions. One to the Apudia thing again. Herr Martinelli asked, we need a real remastered copy of Apudia for consoles and PC. Will there be a chance?
I would definitely agree that we need that. Whether that'll happen, I don't know, but it would definitely be something I'd personally be looking forward to, and I'm sure Chris.
Too.
So
was a
see.
completely remastered soundtrack, of course. Exactly. I think,
and maybe a widescreen mode. How about that?
The chances are better than ever for something like that, huh? What do you think,
I would
Frank?
say so as well. Yes.
Okay.
No, I mean there's nothing to announce, but we've been looking at that for the past I suppose 25 years, yeah, eventually it'll happen, but I've no idea when and how.
Very good and observant questions. Thank you very much.
Yes.
And we have another question to Becky. How did you learn coding at that days without internet, without help of others? How did you learn that, and how did you do that?
Okay, how did I learn to code? That's easy. On the Apple II, there was a built-in disassembler and mini assembler, so that when you start up your Apple II, it shows a little prompt there for Applesoft Basic, and you typed in the command call -151, which puts you into the monitor. There, you typed in, let's say, 800L, which is location 800 list, and it will then list you out the code. I would look at the code for the ROM that they had in the Apple II. I looked at the code for Apple II games I downloaded and played. And eventually, later on, I downloaded and looked at the code on Atari 2600 cartridges. Well, once I started looking at all this stuff, I then realized the 6502 processor. I went to the library, got a book on the 6502, and that's how I knew how the instructions were. And I just started tinkering. I would look at the video game that I downloaded, like an Apple Space Invaders game. I would look at the code, change a few lines, and I would see how the art got changed, how the game would speed up, how it would slow down. And through perseverance, within 6 months later, I was an A6502 programmer, and then I started writing my own stuff. And I've been doing that with every other processor and language, like everything I've self-taught. I learned on my own how to program in Python and C, C++, Lua, and then invented my own languages. Like for both Bard's Tale 3 and Dragon Wars, I wrote a specific language, which it was specifically designed to make RPGs. And I learned this all on myself. I never went to college, and I didn't even finish high school.
And the same question to John. How did you learn coding?
I've never coded a line in my life. I've just done art and design and business.
You never program for your own, or?
No, I've always worked with coders. I mean, that's always been pretty much what I've done my whole life. So, no, never had any need to code. In fact, I think it's helped me in my career. I've never been a coder because I've learned to work with coders, and I've been immensely frustrated with coders a lot of the time. But I've learned to respect what coders tell me and to redesign around what they tell me, and sometimes to challenge them if I think perhaps they're just trying to shortcut. And I guess after doing this for 35 years, you kind of learn the limits of what can and can't be done, and what people are maybe not in a good mood today, or maybe hiding their lack of talent, or maybe, maybe underselling themselves. So your talent becomes to get the best out of coders, a bit like a director with actors, I guess, in that respect.
Thanks.
Yeah, may I add something? I mean, I think books were already invented in the 80s, and I think many coders in the 70s and 80s learned from reading books and magazines, listings, stuff like that. Okay, I won't explain what listings are, but yeah, books are pretty important, I think.
John, I have a question with WizBall. You made the graphics in WizBall.
Yeah.
And which tools do you use in that time?
That's a good question. I've got a question about how Chris learned to program, my partner, because it's funny. So, those catalogs we used to have back in the 80s where we used to always look at the underwear section? Well, there was another section where you could get these computers on hire, and he actually got a computer that he got a Spectrum from one catalog for a month, and then after 1 month he returned it because it was free, and he did this with 3 different companies and taught himself to program. That's actually how he broke into the industry, and how I got my job off the back of his programming. So yeah, like Becky said, where there was a will, there was a way. There wasn't the professional route back in those days so much. It was find your own way in, So regarding WizBall, the tool we used, I can't remember. I remember I used Koala Pad a tiny bit with the I think it must have been D-Paint. I think D-Paint.
Lux Paint.
Yeah. Was that appropriate for a Commodore 64?
No, that was Amiga.
No.
So what was the
Koala Paint?
Koala Paint, yeah.
Koala Paint or Amiga Paint, or Amiga Paint was very popular.
I can't remember which one.
Did that work with the Koala Pad though? Amiga Paint?
The Koala Pad I only used once. Actually, I worked on a very early version. It was never released of International Karate. And I remember doing a Koala Pad of Sugarloaf Mountain.
For 4-color pictures, which was used for character mode graphics, is also Paint Magic.
I could have been Paint Magic. I mean, my attitude as a non-programmer to games is all of the different versions of games and all the tools are a bit like, asking. Sometimes people talk about the different versions of a game. It's like asking someone how you feel about your novel when it was translated into Italian. You're already focused on the next thing, and it's the same with the tools. That they're always transitioning. Everything's changing all the time. So the games survive beyond the tools. And as a non-technical person involved in a technical world, I've always kind of just seen them as transitory and actually not paid too much attention to them. I still use Microsoft Paint every day, by the way, in my work, not in design work, because I know how it works. When you're not involved directly in the technical delivery, which I'm not anymore, I'm not delivering graphics. Your attitude becomes very abstract. Everything is just a tool, like a pencil or a pen. And so I don't remember shorts, but one of them, it wasn't shooting up construction kit. I can tell you that much because we did that afterwards.
Becky, I found something in our shop, and I tried to be very sure that it's yours, but
it's mine.
Yeah, it's yours because they love you so much. So you got your burger inside mentioned. Impossible to see not the right name. It's your burger. Perhaps 2 things. I didn't remember playing it. I of course know Interplay very good because they have an imaginable, very large line of perfect games and blah blah blah. I like it. I'm a sort of a fanboy. Do you remember making this one? Because it's you on the first line as programming. I think it's not so. It didn't happen so often.
Well, I created this game. This is my baby, as well as Bard's Tale 3. Because Bard's Tale 1 and 2 were created by Michael Cranford. I did the 2GS versions, as well as other ports and all the dev tools. But Bard's Tale 3 and Dragon Wars, I created from scratch. And I designed the language, I designed as much as scenarios, so forth. And a lot of the texts were done by writers. Bard's Tale 3, it was Michael Stackpole, and in Dragon Wars, it was Paul O'Connor. But pretty much everything about that game, I did. So, yeah, every line of code. In fact, I still have all the stuff to build that code, build the game, and fun trivia. The PC version of that game was written on an Apple II.
But what's the inspiration for the auto map? There's an auto mapping in Bard's Tale 3, and from my knowledge, it was the first game that used this, which is a huge thing right since then in role-playing games.
Yeah, and in the Apple IIgs versions of Bard's Tale 1 and 2, that's where they put the automap. I created the automap for that version. And then I just simply ported it to the Apple IIe, 2C version, C64 versions for Bard's Tale 3. Mm-hmm. And in fact, if you hit Control P, it'll put up a menu so that you print it out.
Okay.
Then in Dragon Wars, I went to an isometric automap. Which is, again, is one of my own designs. I came up saying, hey, how can I make the automap look better? Let's do it isometric. So, yeah, in fact, there's a picture of it right there. That's the automap. The game itself is all front viewing, but if you just hit question mark, it'll show that map of where you've been. And it works everywhere, be it cities and dungeons and so forth. Because that was one thing I did differently with Bard's Tale 3. The game did exterior maps and interior maps differently. In Dragon Wars, there's no difference. The game treats both the same. So which allowed me to do things like skies and dungeons that go in underground and above ground at the same time. Things like that. But yeah, that's my game.
I have to speak a little bit so that the others see it, because the stream is only limited to one person speaking at once, so you can see now the auto map. Yeah, okay.
I've got a copy of Bard's Tale 3 here. How come Dragon Wars wasn't a real successor? Was it planned as a different game, or why didn't it become Bard's Tale 4?
Well, it was Bard's Tale 4. When Bard's Tale 3 was done and shipped, I immediately started working on Bard's Tale 4. Unfortunately, because of legal issues, Interplay at that time published Neuromancer and Battle Chess as its own publisher. We signed a deal with a company called Mediagenic, which was Activision in another name. And they were doing our distribution. The problem was Electronic Arts was also bidding to be our distributor. And when Electronic Arts found that they weren't going to be our distributor anymore, they said, well, since we own the intellectual property of Bard's Tale and Wasteland, you're not going to be able to make any more Bard's Tale Wasteland games. So to which we had to move around, and I think we renamed it internally Project X, and then later on it became War of the Dragons, and then it became Dragon Wars. But all my notes and everything still say Bard's Tale 4. And also because we couldn't do Wasteland anymore, that's how Fallout was born.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to say bye to all of you. I have to leave now. It was very pleasure to meet you all, and hope to meet you some year next year and at the Gamescom or something like that. Bye bye from my.
Thanks.
Thank you, Willy.
Bye bye.
Willy, hope to
Thank you.
Bye
Bye. That's also a dropout for me, because I have to meet Willy in the morning, and I have to get the breakfast. So he can sleep longer than I.
Okay, same to me also.
Yeah, same here.
Have a nice morning and
thanks.
See you. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, thank you.
And I'm dropping out too, guys. It's getting later here.
Short
so yeah.
question to you, Julian.
Yes.
Some years ago, I think it's 3 or 4 years, you said we could do an interview sometimes. It would be great if I can contact you. I tried it since 3 years, and please send me an email or give me a hint. I want to do this interview, and a lot of listeners of our podcast ask when Julian did this interview. I can do this interview. I said I wrote.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Yeah, let's finally do it.
Please send me a mail or give me an
at factor5.com.
Okay, I try it again.
at factor5.com. Yes,
I know this email. Yes, of course. It would be great. Thank you very much for the infos and
thanks, guys.
Bye.
It was great.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Well, I too have to get going as well. This is Rebecca Heineman, and I gotta go eat dinner.
Bye.
Wonderful having me here.
Thanks
All right?
a lot for joining us. Hope to see you again. We plan video calls like this again. At the end of this year, we have the 100th issue of our podcast online video. Perhaps you want to join us there or something like that. Thanks again for joining us. It was a great honor to have you here. Thanks a lot.
All right, send me an invitation, and I will see if I can clear my schedule.
Of course.
Thank you, Becky.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. So, I will leave too. So I just wanted to say if we were on a real Gamescom or whatever for exhibition, we would never meet such a lot of people and a bunch of here. And it was very nice to talk to you, and it's very fun to be here. And yeah, that's one of the things we have in this COVID thing. And I think it's for me one of the best shows here. It's not kidding. And yeah, wish you to have a nice day, night, whatever, morning. So hope to see you soon.
Thanks a lot. We do open hand here. We will see how it ends. Yesterday we did the after show till 4 o'clock in the morning or something like that. We had to switch at 2 o'clock to another channel, but here on the Zoom channel, everyone who will stay here can talk with us. Thanks a lot, and hope to see you again. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, now some time for the guy in the background. I'm finally here. Background work has calmed down a lot. I had a heavy work to do where when the new people arrived, chat with them, do some managed work in the background. But now I'm here, and I know Ingo was faster than me, but I had a lot of things to do. But Ingo, I can beat you. You see, this is his first CD from Chris. Shade. The second one, the third one to be on top.
I have much more. Wait, I must search my.
And a picture how we today learned how it's pronounced.
It's not a I have the lower number with the piano collection.
Yes, you are right. You are right. You have what was it? 76, and I only have 100.
My bucket list is bigger than yours.
But I can't read the number. Maybe we can ask Chris what number it is. Wait, I
catched the fish, and it was so big.
It's definitely a 7.
We have a question from the chat again to Chris, and this is a nice question. From Kundenbetreuung heute, is it in the meantime possible to get a decent curry sausage and spaghetti ice cream in America?
Yeah, not where I live right now, but when I was still near San Francisco, there was actually a there was an ice dealer, ice cream parlor that had the spaghetti ice cream, which was
spaghetti
shocking.
Ice cream.
Yeah,
spaghetti
it has nothing to do with spaghetti. It's like
just the shape of it.
It looks like it. It's actually vanilla ice cream, and it was invented in Mannheim by somebody there, and yeah, it's one of my favorite ice cream variations.
Mine too.
And each time when I go to Germany, I have to have it at least once. And then the Kundenbetreuung. Exactly. Oh yeah,
what number
there
it is?
you go. 73 of 500.
Ah,
Nice.
okay. I thought maybe it could be 13. What a pity. It isn't.
You cannot sell it for more.
In your imagination, yes.
13 would be bad luck anyway.
So, John, you're in your gaming room, or is it games?
Yeah, I moved. Basically, what happened was I was in my living room with my laptop, and then the battery died, and then I had to plug it in down here. So I moved. I came to my lead, and this is like my office. I don't know if you guys.
Okay.
Can see this.
My
This
hand
is
is like
like
2 times today.
It's like a dungeon.
this is like my keyboard, my guitars, and my old games over there and stuff. You know? It's where I work. Yep. So now I'm back at the office from the living room. So I was sitting in my settee with a drink, and now I'm just back at the desk. That's it.
There's another question from the chat. Chris, what about the Amiga demo you planned for this year, a TFMX music demo?
Yes, this whole strictly limited production came kind of like pretty quickly. I mean, we had something like that in mind, but it did not happen until like maybe 2 months ago or something, where I first heard about it, and since then it's been totally chaotic. I actually had talked to Richard about doing it together, but he didn't have time in the end because I was late. The problem is that the TFMX files from the project are not cleaned up, so they still have samples in there that are not used. There's like fragments of songs that I started that need to be cleaned up. It's just not. And then also playing them back, some of the playback systems that are out there don't play this back correctly, because there's always different TFMX versions that have different features in the sound macros. So I have to actually go in there and see if it actually runs on those, like the Winamp player and the Deli player on the Amiga and all those. I want to make sure that it actually runs correctly, and that the files are cleaned up. And yeah, but it's coming. It will come. I have connections now to programmers who are able enough, but they have other things to finish up right now.
There is another currywurst question in the chat. Chris has 3 currywursts in Saarbrücken a lifetime, and he knows why. I don't know what they want to tell us.
Well, the thing is, we actually had like a big meetup of fans in Cologne for Gamescom for a currywurst and spaghetti ice meetup, and so that's part of that. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to maybe I'll do a currywurst tour through Germany. That would be nice.
Hamburg has a good one.
You're welcome, Chris, at any time.
Yeah. I make the best currywurst sauce ever here in North Rhine-Westphalia. So, just come.
On that note, maybe yeah, it's time for me to also sign off. But it was very nice chatting with you all and meeting you all, and I mean the ones that I hadn't met before. And thanks to the fans in the chat and everything. And looking forward to getting this huge project done and other things.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Bye.
Bye.
Chris.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
For me, Chris, it was an especially emotional moment. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
For me too.
I'll check out that email later. Thank you so much. Until then, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Guys, I'm going to go as well. I want to go and show you something. This is something that happens when you make games and you have kids. You had a WizKid earlier. This is something. It's like you get these things, and I got like a Sensible Soccer bookmark with Daddy on it and stuff.
That's sweet. You should sell
like
it.
life in games with daughters who are now adults and had their own. Actually, I've just become a granddad. So that's
I
how
know,
it-
because
Okay.
I've heard something with university, or no, your daughter is okay. You're granddad soon.
I'm a grandfather now. I've been
okay.
a grandfather for 2 weeks. Yeah. So
Congratulations.
yeah, there you go. This is games as a from my kids growing up with a dad making stupid computer games. This is it. It's reality. It's amazing that we've all come this far to like a proper generation shift. And that's where we are now. You know, we're looking around the world at this crazy COVID time, and we're all taking stock of our lives and realizing, hopefully most of us, at least we've got nice families and homes, even if everything else is a little bit wonky at the moment. And I think this is a really interesting time in the world right now for all of us, you know. However we've been through to this point, I think the bigger question for us, our generation, is what do we give our children and our grandchildren now? How do we join up what we know to what is now for them, so that this spirit we had when we started making these games in the 80s and in the 90s, this is being lost in the world right now, you know. This mentality we had of enterprise and being able to do stuff, people are trying to strangle it from us at the moment. So my bigger view at the moment is, how do we keep that alive? All of us, I'm talking now, you know, all of us, whoever we are, because we can't let our world be consumed by corporations and news about terrible things and how we're all bad and everything is a disaster. This is not right. So I think the bigger question is, what can we do as a generation of people, because we're largely the same generation, with largely the same worldview? What can we share? We're stuck between this big baby boomer generation and this young generation, which is kind of unhappy and not got a great deal going. What can we do? It's a question.
John, do you mind me asking, your kids, how did you influence them, and did any of them get interested in game development or do anything in games?
None of my daughters. I've got 3 daughters. The eldest.
Oh my God!
The oldest is 32. The youngest is 26. The one in the middle is 30. She's the one who's just had a baby. So no, none of them chose to go into games. Different careers. One's went into being a doctor of psychology. Another one's working in publishing. The other one's doing various bits. And no, not at the moment. I think they understand how hard it is to keep this going. You know, making games is a living when you want to be independent, which I've always wanted to be. It's quite hard. You know, you need to really, really push. I mean, so no, they didn't. No, but I think that I'm lucky in that I started off quite successful, relatively young. So I've had some success and I had some money, and that's fine. But you still keep going, and I wonder how we can not let this spirit of making things happen just be crushed, or go the opposite way. It goes into this world of dreaming about startups and what you can do in it, and a lot of this stuff ultimately filters down into nothing. It's like, you know, so many startups turn into either something which dies or something which is swallowed by a big corporation.
Yeah, but isn't that unfortunately a little bit the side effect of an industry maturing? I know exactly what you mean, but I think a lot of it is like when an industry is young and it's growing and there's lots of innovation, and then it's also possible for outsiders and people who haven't studied it or haven't really professionally planned to go into an industry have a chance to get into it. I think that's what our generation was, right? Everything was new, and that's also an opportunity for outsiders to really become to found a company, to go into basically something that you also haven't learned and still be successful, at least those who survive business-wise. But then everything matures, everything gets bigger, the bigger companies, some of the ones that survive grow bigger and swallow the smaller ones, and it's an unfortunate trend, but I think this happens probably in other industries as well.
I think this is my point. I mean, I agree with you, what you're saying, and for sure within our industry that's what's happened, and that's going to happen. But I think it's a bigger issue than our industry. I think it's about the world, and this is my problem. I understand our industry's got to a certain point. You've got certain power players. There's a huge technology companies now as well, and stuff, and you know, the bigger channels. We understand that game, but the world is like that. And my question is actually for our generation. You know, like we are European people from a certain generation that understand the world kind of like post-World War, before all this corporate shit has killed everything. And there's some creativity in the middle there that's come from music, from games, from film, to a certain extent from business and other areas. How can we keep that flame, for want of a better word, alight for younger people to carry from us, and to not see people seem to be so carried along with stuff and so easily swamped with things, and it kind of concerns me that the influence I've been able to enjoy in this industry as a creative person, I'm talking about now, not personally, it's quite hard to establish that at the moment. It's quite hard to hold on to it and to remain autonomous. And that's true around the world in everything at the moment. You know, most things sink and a few things swim and get swallowed. It's a question, is there anything we can do?
But isn't you're just focusing on the negative sides of it, but isn't there also with just, I mean, just taking our industry as an example for the bigger picture, but even in our industry, isn't there also the positive side, like with it all growing up and being more mature, there's also some very nice development with all the indie titles nowadays. I mean, when I look at Steam and I see all of those really creative new titles coming out, because a lot of hurdles are now lower than they were when we were young. There's a lot of people that can be creative nowadays and can even especially remove the entire business side. I don't want to know how many people in our shoes failed because they failed on the business level, who were creative game developers, made maybe great art or were great programmers, but because they were not themselves business people, they didn't get so successful or didn't manage to found a company. And nowadays, this is all easier thanks to things like platforms like Steam. So there are also positive developments. And
well, okay, two things. Firstly, in my opinion, we already had an indie era in the 80s and the 90s. It didn't happen in the States so much, so we don't hear about it. But in Europe, certainly in the UK, we had a pretty healthy independent era in that time. Totally not corporate. Totally like having a small band, getting in a van and driving around the country and gigging. That's how we used to work. So, and I agree with you, there's lots of opportunities now. But what I don't see, and having done teaching and lecturing in universities in England for 5 years, I don't see a real enough business acumen around it. Because you need the business, the IP management, the understanding the way you run a company. Otherwise, it's not a career; it becomes a hobby, which goes to But that's not what we. That's not even
the hobby is super successful, right? I mean, there are those developers who bring out something on Steam and then
My question's at a bigger level. I feel that everything is very marketing led at the moment. Yeah, that's really the point here. And we talked earlier about how we had independent shops buying games and then they disappeared and the chains came in, and nowadays our chains are our distribution channels, or Google's, Apple's, Steam's, whatever, right? And there's certain marketing games you have to play around those to make things happen, you know. So I guess my question is, maybe it's not an issue to everybody, it's an issue to me. I feel the way people are being manipulated and have felt it for quite a while, you know. And having come from inside an industry that's really creative, and when it wasn't so manipulated, I understand it doesn't need to be like that. And my question is, well, I'm just asking you guys, what do you think? Am I talking rubbish? Is there any sense in what I'm saying? I'd like everyone's opinion on this.
John, I'm following you on Facebook since 4 years or so, since our first we met at the Gamescom, and I've see you in the face when you had your financial problems, as you mentioned before, and it was opening the notebook, seeing you posting, and it was like because you were angry about anything, and from a certain level you stopped writing postings like this. And I can only say from my point of view, we are just in the retro stream, and this is more like a small river with a slow speed.
I understand,
And Bernd, you're talking to Bernd, who is the owner of Egosoft, who has one perfect product with a great community and living in a sort of own bubble, because his community is he has his community. But if you're going out in the big business, in my opinion, the market has changed very much, because the companies has to do a different marketing now, because the customer is more focused on something new. I think titles like 8 titles like Electronic Arts puts out every 1 or 2 years does not have the same impact as it has years before.
So you think it's going in a better direction for new products now?
Since 2 years, yes.
Since 2 years, okay. And what
I think it's changed a bit.
What do you think has created the change?
That the normal way you sell games has changed from retail games and shops where you put some displays and you got some girls going around saying, here, I'm for Call of Duty, blah, 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 blah. It's not happening anymore. So you only got Amazon, the shops in other countries, and the other is Steam and Epic. And shops have, if you see the statistics, how much games have been sold from indie titles, it's sometimes you have 500,000 sold just to an indie title, which had never been before 5 years ago.
So you think things are actually going in a good direction in this, very recently as well? You're saying for 2 years.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I understand that.
I would say it's just not all negative. I mean, I see your point, John. It's just I think also in the 80s, at least in the early 90s, where I can maybe say more myself, that there were always also negative business trends. There was always the bad guys, the big bad guys who try to push out shit games, or who try to bankrupt the small developers, or just buy up the IP or whatever. All of these same bad business tactics that are still there today, and which kind of is like a bad spirit. I think this has always been there, but I think that is not new, and that isn't changing. It's a little bit.
I'm not necessarily saying things are all bad now. What I'm saying is, it was. I guess maybe. I mean, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. It could be my personal opinion, but the creative energy of just making something and pushing it out and having that seriously considered and put through the machine that puts things into the market. I think it happens now, but I do think, especially with games, there's certain areas which we're not touching because we're going through channels. So in terms of entertainment software, if we like, you won't see much which is political or which is going to upset anybody or these kind of things. Do you hear?
Serious? I mean, I've seen some pretty political games on Steam recently. I think
you have. Okay, and they've got.
I've seen some. I mean, it's of course the question is how successful are they? How much visibility do they get? But at least Steam isn't. They are doing everything to make it automated, to leave the decisions up to some AI that just goes for eyeballs, and not really to some people at Valve that say, okay, this game is the game that our audience should see, and all the others disappear. So it's a little bit democratic, maybe not in the best way, and it is probably possible to make it in a really good way. But I've seen some political things.
Games like Through the Darkest of Times, for example.
I haven't seen this game, I have to say so.
Yeah, it's a pretty political message within the game, and it's if someone plays the game and really tries to understand what's going on within the game, then it could lead to positive behavior somehow.
I just hope we keep everything open, not be. I hope we can continue to keep this open, and actually also on a quality level. I've got a big problem with the copycat games which are allowed to even exist. Games which, clog up the mobile market, for example, which are poor copies of something which was there before.
Yeah.
And I hope we can have that kind of curation. I mean, we're actually on Apple Arcade with Sociable Soccer, and Apple Arcade is not perfect, but at least it's curated. And this is a good thing. I mean, it's weird because it hits a tiny fragment of a market of Apple, you know. So there's good and bad things about it, but the curation is fantastic. For I don't know if any of you guys have had titles on there, but your title gets attention for what it is within that genre, because and to me that's
curation is good for those who are favored by the system, but it's I think
well, that's the way I like it to be. No, I mean, you need to hit a certain quality threshold. That's all I'm saying. I think for our industry, we need to retain that. You know, we don't want to be in a position where anyone who makes anything which runs on a piece of code which runs on a platform is publishable. You know,
that's basically what happened in the 80s too, right? I mean, how many games were published which were total crap?
Well, not many, because you had a manufacturing cost which stopped people running out 20,000.
Yeah, but on the Spectrum, on the C64, you had so many crappy games from Radasoft and whatever.
We had a company called Kingsoft in Germany, which had so many programs which looked a bit like something on the market for a year.
But I liked Emerald Mine. That was a great game, Emerald Mine.
That was Key Punch Software in the United States. Key Punch Software. They were just almost, but not quite every other game.
But you got to understand, even in those days, even in those big days of like Amiga or PlayStation 2, there was only 3 games per day new coming out.
Yeah.
It wasn't like 100, you know.
Of course, you are right that a platform like Steam that deliberately tries to lower and lower and lower the hurdle of this automatically attracts a lot of very, very bad titles. But what they are trying for many years already, and I believe that they are really honest in that attempt, at least. And this is always very controversial because there's always losers, and always the developers who don't benefit from it will not like their work. But I think they are honestly trying to set up an automated system that basically takes those decisions, is good and what is bad, from them, and still gives the consumers in the end a good idea of if a game is good or bad.
But there's another thing. So definitely not, because since Steam started with this automatic structures in this way, I lost some suggestions in my list which I prefer in gaming. I constantly get games I'm don't interested in. I constantly get games about shooters and stuff like that. I don't play those. This algorithm is shit.
Yeah, it's a complex system, but what I can speak about myself is in particular the review system, because this is certainly not something that is incentivized from the business side, to say it mildly. Like, I'm sure there's no developer who loves the review system on Steam, and there is no, and Valve themselves don't benefit from it, but it's there. And we, as a developer, we had big problems with it because we had sometimes versions of the game that had problems, and then you get a lot of bad reviews, and then it's very hard to get out of that again. But I respect it deeply because it's this democratic platform system, and it helps really give the consumer in the end a relatively democratic.
The problem is that. It is a democratic system, but I am an individual within an individual taste, and this is that's happening. This isn't happening on Steam.
And also, there are a lot of people who are giving bad reviews just for bombing and release. For example, Last of Us 2, there was a big campaign, with a lot of bad reviews, and it was incredible.
But I don't, from a customer perspective, I don't think it is so bad what you're all saying, because I see it more like, yes, there's a lot, but it is good because there's more of everything. So now, for example, in the last couple of years, I was able to buy newly made games from my Amiga I was able to buy newly made, really high quality games for the Commodore 64, and I can play all these other games, also political games like the games like Heavy Rain or Detroit Become Human, AAA titles that do political things.
But
all of this now exists, so there's something for everybody.
But
Every
Armin,
special
you have to
case
find
can
them.
be served.
When it's not a game with a huge budget in advertisement and stuff, where do you find them?
Yeah, but on Steam you can find them, and it is, I mean, you have to realize first that it's impossible to make a system that makes everybody happy. It is impossible. There's tens of thousands of games by now competing for eyeballs there, and there's always many more losers than there are winners. And
let me ask you a question. If every art gallery had 500,000 paintings that anyone had done just stuck to the wall, would it make it a better art gallery?
But I think we find the games the same way as we did back then. We find them because our friends tell us about them, the ones that they found. We find them because magazines and blogs talk about them, because podcasts talk about them. We don't find them through the shop systems. We find them by hearsay, just like always. There's millions of artworks in the world. I don't find them by looking at an art art online or so. I find them because somebody tells me, "Have you seen this painting?"
Yeah.
Look,
right,
it's
but
amazing.
in doing that, right, this happens with literature too, because it used to be when you would write, it would go to a publishing house and it would go through the editing process. A lot of times, 9 times out of the 10, you're getting a rejection letter. You're not getting published at all, and so you have, and in doing that, there were a lot of things, a lot of good authors that were never published. Now with things like Amazon, anybody can put a book out. And so when you go on there, there is a ton of crap. You know, My Night with the Sasquatch or something. You know, it's like there's loads of that which drown out. You know, and some are legitimately decent, but it drowns out a lot of the really good ones because there's so much crap laying around. And it's sort of the same thing with the democratization of the games that you're talking about. Is like how do you find? You know, there's so many that are out now. That it kind of hurts the individuals.
The problem is the same in all of those cases. The question is just there are different solutions for the competition for eyeballs. In the end, it's always how do you get the visibility, and and the answer to that is always either do you leave it to a big corporation that makes the decision for you, the publisher. Like you as a developer go to different publishers, they have to make the decision based on money, like you said.
But it's still the same.
Yeah, no, wait, that's one way. And this is how it was in the 80s or 90s, and it was based on how much production costs do we have to put into this? Is it worth it? And then they make a judgment. Okay.
Yes.
And that has a lot of downsides, right? I mean, they will rule out political games, for example, or will rule out other things. Now, if you do it completely democratic, of course it has problems. I'm just saying what Steam is doing is they are mixing multiple things. They have, of course, they have your friend suggestions. That's one thing. So that pops up. They have the review system. So you can get, of course, that also have lots of faults. I can really talk a lot about those. But I'm just seeing because we are working with them for so many years now, that they are honestly trying to set up a system that is democratic on the one hand, and still gives the best result for the consumer.
But is it
a very, very tough job?
Anyone who supports a football team, would you want anyone who fancies himself as a professional sports person representing their team and being on the pitch? I mean, it's kind of insane that there's no quality gatekeeper. It's a bit like what AJ was saying, like as a writer or a photographer, all these people, other people that I know outside of our industry, their profession's almost being lost. And I have to say, as a game maker and as someone who's never been in the demo scene, never, ever, since 19 I've been making games professionally, there's been this massive blur of hobbyists and professionals lumped together. This is because the guys at the top don't give a shit about where the content comes from. It's just content. They don't care. It's the same with writing, it's the same with photos, it's the same with music. I'm a pretty good musician, but I'm not a pro. But I know I'm a professional games writer. There's a difference, you know. But because we're in this age of mega populism where everyone wants to be included, we can't exclude anyone by saying you're not quite good enough. Like, in many areas of the world we do it, but in media, now it's digital. Now the cost has disappeared. The gate has disappeared. The quality.
No, it hasn't disappeared. I mean,
good.
You're saying it yourself. Of course, there are gatekeepers, but it's just they are different levels. Like on Steam, you have what are they called? The curators. Of course, every system that they install will be abused. So with the curators, you have lots of people that are just trying to be or to just give automatic reviews for all games or stuff like that. Every system that they establish will be abused by organizations who try to make fake reviews or something, or by...
That's not the point. If you look at mobile, which is the most extreme example, 1 million products viewed in a window, you can only view 10 at a time. There's only one way you're going to get to the top: marketing spend. So the money's actually going to marketing companies, people.
But mobile is horrible because of a reason. I think mobile, it's basically the same thing. But mobile, and I don't think Apple's solution is the best solution for it. It's a good solution for some.
It's a good solution for some. I agree with you there. Yeah.
The problem is that I think, yeah, Steam is trying to set up something that would be good to also have on mobile, because it would at least solve part of this problem. There's on the one hand, there's a lot of crap. The copycat is a different thing that you mentioned, which is also horrible.
Yes.
That should be a legal solution to that. I mean, if you do what some of those companies are doing, just blatantly ripping off another game, that is illegal. That should be illegal. And
I agree with you.
That's not a platform problem, but yeah, other things are platform problems, and I think at least that Steam is a better approach at solving it than the completely open shops that. Yeah, all the completely closed shops.
So this is a new confusion we've got through, and as I say, it goes well beyond games. It's through digitization. Like, can you imagine the volume of written words that are published in a platform of some kind now every day compared to 50 years ago? It must be 10,000 times per day, something like that. It's extraordinary, this content we've created, because we trace it back to when we didn't used to have printing presses and no one could read, and then they printed books, and then words were the gospel, quite literally, and everyone read the words and they were important. And now we've got this over-reliance on words, and now they're starting to lose their meaning, you know. The words are starting to, like, almost go somewhere else. And
what about music?
I'm sorry.
Music is also, there's millions and millions of albums and a huge amount of content, and it still works. I mean, people like certain bands, they like certain developers, they look for the games from that same developer, from that same book author, they look for books from that author. I think what we maybe just need is a few more labels that can specifically serve certain tastes, so that you go by your label and you trust them that they select the games for you. I don't know. I'm just...
You're just
well, it doesn't necessarily always work, because the independent musicians don't always get the airplay that the mainstream guys that have a label do. And the labels are run by old people who decide this is what kids want. It used to be back in the 50s and 60s, somebody would come up with some kind of new sound, and the guy at the top would go, I don't know what this is. Yeah, try it. And people liked it. Now it's younger people that say, no, this is what people want. And if you have a different sound, we don't want anything to do with you. So it never even gets there.
But on Spotify, like platforms like Spotify, you know, it's not like the radio. I don't think they select that much. I'm not sure, but I don't think they are so selective.
Yeah, Spotify is maybe a similar thing to Steam in a way. And I have another positive example. I know there's always negatives, and as soon as I will say that, then you will probably also shout there's so much negative in it. But my point is just that it is a balance. There's always negative and positive. My example would be YouTube as a platform for publishing video content. I mean, yes, there's so much crap on YouTube, so much bad things. But on the other hand, I love to watch educational stuff there, videos. I've subscribed over the years to probably more than 100 channels, which push out like those little individual channels that push out maybe one video a month about a topic which are really well researched. And it's hard to find those really good channels. It's like finding a pearl, but once you do, after a while, you can create yourself like the best possible TV station ever. And this is just something that was impossible in the past. And it's like another side of this digitalization that, yeah, you can say, sure, we are producing so much crap, an ocean of crap, and then it's so hard to find the pearls in it. But yeah.
I guess the question is, maybe it's better now, or maybe it's worse now, but it's different. So we talk about old retro games. Everyone's here because of retro games, and everyone's here because they like the same group of retro games. There's going to be 30, 40, 50 games we discuss, and no more, right? That's the polar opposite of what we've got now. With this big sprawl, and you find your own thing, apart from the odd thing that everyone's aware of, you know, like something like Britney Spears or Miley Cyrus that we're all made aware of, yeah? Then there's these tiny fraction bits we find. It's very different from how we used to consume stuff where, you know, I would be into David Bowie, for example, and I'd listen to all the records again and again, and me and my friends would talk about this. And so my question is, when we consume media in this different way, in this digital rush, how much is it going to affect because having these, even though David Bowie's emblematic of creative songwriter of that era, how much is it going to change us when we don't have these emblems we all relate to and understand? That's the big question.
You know, what you just said reminded me of something my parents always said. They would be like, when I was young, there was only one channel on TV or two channels. So we all we could all talk about it the next day because we all watched the same thing. And then they say, now you have 300 channels on cable. How can you even, you know, you can never talk about it. Nobody watches the same thing. So, and that was, you know, many decades ago. But I think your point of view is somewhat a little bit similar. I like to see the positive about it. The positive is there's so much choice now. With cable TV, I still had to choose channels. Now with Netflix, I can choose exactly what I want to see.
I agree with you.
There's pros and cons of all of this.
For consumers, it's a great system. It's fantastic for consumers. It's the creators that it's not fantastic for.
Yeah, correct.
I think so. I'm just talking from a consumer point of view. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it's also, I guess John's point is not just that. It's also like if I get you right, the psychological effect that it has on consumers.
Correct.
That kids grow up differently. And I think, of course, this is like just another aspect of that age-old question of like, now it is what happens to the child's brain when they are constantly getting fed input, and they have this dopamine constant satisfaction where I would say, but I know that there is definitely again the negative sides of it, but it's if the parents take care of their kids and are careful and control what kids are allowed to do, then all of those media, the new media, are not more dangerous than things in the past. And this, again, hasn't really changed. There were always people that saw the new media as a danger. I've read some funny stories about how people in the early days of newspapers were already seeing newspapers as dangerous because they had so many short text, and they said that would basically be damaging to the attention span of people. They should rather read books. And then, of course, when television was new and so forth. So there's always this discussion whenever there is new technology. Maybe it is dangerous for us. And yes, the technology changes us. I think kids nowadays are psychologically very differently developed than just one generation back already, and that's a fact. And not all of that development is positive. It is what it is, but it's also not all negative either. So.
No, it's not negative. It's different. I agree with you. It's different. Yeah.
Just a short story. I was on holiday in Denmark, and 20 years ago, every adult in Denmark speaks or at least can listen to German. This is just because of German television was so strong that the Danish television was a bit crappy. What was like made in the cellar, and the German television was full color, Traumschiff, Schwarzwaldklinik, television series, expensive. And so the Danish people all watched German television. And all the adults speak German. And I've been to Denmark, and we had some problems with the police, some strange story, and no one, 10 people, 10 Danish people, never speak German, just English. And same thing if you go turn down to the 80s, as Bernd told us, we all watched the same thing on television. Now you have the choice of 50 channels plus. You can watch Netflix and you can watch Amazon. And the only thing that most of the people do is cry on the state television that it's making crappy things and it's expensive and horrible, blah, 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 but they don't watch it. And so on one point, it's like they have all the choice, but the choice makes it more critical or more strange within the society because we all watch something different.
Well, correct. We can't share it with each other so easily.
Well, of course not. Yeah. I don't think the thing is, for me, it's more about the medium. Because I still make difference between books and I make difference to music and also to games because they're all in a different scale what is provided. And what's happening in the games market is that there are so many games that it's you have to watch only the new releases on Steam and you can see after half an hour you won't see the same releases anymore, which have that moment you have looked at it the last time.
And you know what? It's taken us 5 years to make the current game we're making. To get how many?
Yeah,
how many seconds?
And there's more. The thing is, there was an article on Gamers Global, which is a gaming mag here in Germany, and it was an opinion which was kind of controversy about people who do this crappy stuff, and when they came up to a forum and asking for feedback for the stuff they are doing, and he was just talking, go home and learn. This was kind of what's happening there, and I was thinking about what's with all those people which are trying to do something, which are really trying to do something in this area. There is nothing. They go to Steam because it's the cheapest way to go. It's just $100, I think, to play the game.
People go there because it's the largest platform and the largest market.
That's one part, but it happened when they started with this $100 thing. Then happens that these releases exploded on that platform.
This is another one of those examples where people abuse the system, and that's the problem with such a democratic platform. They are always, every system they establish, people find ways to abuse it. It's like this is the small fee that they established was a method of at least getting rid of some of those automated methods. But yeah, $100 is of course very, very cheap. I don't even know how much you have to pay at the moment or what the current...
It would be quite funny if people manufactured cars in the same way, right? We can just knock up a car in your garage at the weekend and sell it, stick it on the road, see how it goes. Why not?
No, that's not a good example because cars, obviously, there's too much cost of goods, right? But you the better example yourself before the
point is
everybody can paint a picture.
The point is allowing the car on the road here. If I make a car and it kind of runs, and it can just run on the road.
Yeah, but there's no danger. There's no danger on those roads, right?
But
a bad game that nobody buys is not really harming anybody.
But it is because it's harming the quality. No, the average quality of what's on the store.
The average quality doesn't matter. It's the what matters is the average. No, what matters is the average quality of games
caused the video game crash back in the early 80s.
If a game is just on Steam and nobody ever sees it and nobody ever plays it, then nobody cares. What matters is if the wrong games get the attention. I mean, if such bad games are actually being played, and of course they are making the game. So some people seem to be buying them. Otherwise it wouldn't.
Let me ask you a question. Let me talk about my game, Sensible Soccer, which people know, right? Why did everyone play Sensible Soccer back in 1992? Why did we not have to put huge amounts of marketing into that happening?
Because the magazines told us that it's a great game.
Yeah, and what other competition did we have at the time?
Nobody made a good game.
No, there was kickoff. There was kickoff. So it really split the community into two: the kickoff fans and the sensible soccer fans.
The two, right? Now imagine I made a match 3 game. Now, what's my competition? Is it 2? Is it 2,000? Is it 20,000? Is it 200,000? Maybe.
Are there really
so you are in a very luxurious position, right? I mean, you are a known developer.
No, it's not because it was known. It's because it was a really good game. It wasn't just because if someone unknown had made that game at the time, it would have got the attention. It wouldn't have been so easy for them with business, but it would have done. The point is, there's a quality difference between professional product and people learning their craft. And the people learning their craft at the moment are put in the same stage as the people who are professionals. It's an insult to professionals. And this is going right across the industries. Journalists are suffering massively from this at the moment. So I say photographers are suffering, writers are suffering, musicians are suffering because there is a difference. And people don't like to hear it because it's elitist. But as someone in the member of an elite in this area, I can say it because and also the people who suffer the most aren't people like me, because I can still get my way with business. It's really, really good quality, unknown young people whose voice and whose work is being just swamped by crap. This is not good. You know, we wouldn't have made it as sensible software now with this deluge with our quality of product.
I don't believe so. Because I see the opposite examples. You are just focusing on the negatives. Because I'm on Spotify listening to the Discover Weekly playlist all the time, and just to find those cool new songs that nobody suggests to me, that I don't have to read about in a magazine, that I don't need EMI music or Sony
For a
music.
consumer, it's fantastic. No one's talking about that. But if you want it to be your living, you want to grow up a family with it and own a house and have a car and your life not to fall apart, then it matters. And that's the problem at the moment. I think that there are some great young people emerging through this, really talented, which is great. The problem is, if the other 95% of people who aren't talented weren't in the way, they'd do even better, they'd have even more support, and we could move forward quicker. At the moment, we've got all the digital tools, which are great. Everyone's got them. The problem now is everyone's allowed to use them without that vetting that most professional world things will have. That's my point. We kind of almost need 2 or 3 tiers of publishing. So you can be up at this level and you can come to this level, but the best ones in the lower level can move up. That's kind of what we need. We need a tiered system.
You know what could be done is you have to have a master's university degree to publish a game on Steam, or you have a separate. You know, that's the kind of thing we're talking about. We have this in the natural sciences, right? You're not allowed to publish until you have reached a certain rank in the university system.
And the
what
people
does that
who
mean,
allow
really?
you to do it are the problems, because they make the steps. Just like in Germany, we have the Meister. Only the Meister is allowed to do something in crafting.
Only the master baker can open a bakery. So there is this educational system that which is doing this gatekeeping in many of the jobs and professions still. But it is a bit funny in the games industry because there are these degrees, but do we really want to require somebody to be on Steam to have a master's degree in game design? I don't know.
No, you don't. What you need is proper publishing mentality. So in the old days, when you went to publishers, not just games publishers, music publishers, book publishers, these guys had a double skill. One was their business acumen. The secondly, they had a proper feeling for their art form they were representing. They understood enough about music, or enough about games, or enough about books to have a feeling for it. And they were building a stable of product to put their label on. And sometimes it was too selective, and sometimes it was too manipulated, but often it wasn't. So it's a bit like when you throw away that system and go into total what we've been calling democracy. It's kind of democracy, but it's over democracy, you know. So sometimes when we throw away, like for example, you throw away monarchy, and then you go to a form of governing a country which is not monarchy, and you get elected democracy. Well, that's good mostly, but there's one problem with it. Every 5 years, you can just walk away with the problems you left and forget about them. And with monarchy, you can't. So monarchy has that consistency of responsibility that we lose with elected leaders, if you understand what I mean. If you want to see the upside of everything, which I agree you should. And now we're kind of in this position with this democratized publishing. Like, how do we handle the volume and make it right? So that's really
impossible, right? I mean, what you want, these publishers, it's impossible now because there's just too much content. Nobody can even skim it all anymore. So you would need an army of editors to read all of the stuff and then decide what is good or not. I mean, because we are so many more creative people now in the world, you know. I mean, I wonder how many people were able to code games in the 80s, and how many people have the skills to code games, bad or good games, doesn't matter. Just code a game.
Code bug-free games actually just about the same amount now as they used to be. They're just
maybe, I don't know. I agree that there were a lot of public domain games back then. Also, you know, the shareware market was gigantic. It was so good. Really good.
Oh, that's true. I think John is ignoring that. I mean, there was a lot of really crap games already also in the 80s and 90s.
There were loads. I agree.
Just a totally different market. So the public domain.
This is the point, that they didn't in general get manufactured because the cost of having a tape, a manual, a box, putting it in a lorry, driving it to a shop, it was all too much, and people were like, this thing isn't worth that. And that physical manufacture was the biggest gatekeeper of all. Because it made
the physical cost is the analogy of the price you have to pay to get on a platform like Steam. And of course, if I don't really know what it is right now, because we are again in that elitist situation that we, as long year partner with them, of course don't have to pay anything for it. But I think it is, if it is something like $100, and of course it is way too cheap to really function as a hurdle for anybody.
Correct.
On the other hand, if you just set it to any high price, there's always the risk that there will be some really talented small indies, the really good one that you are losing, and who's just not able to pay whatever $10,000 or something.
I think 10,000 is actually about the right number.
Yeah, that was the number that I would also have in mind. But on the other hand, I'm pretty sure there are some really. I've met some really talented small.
Yeah, but this is where publishing comes in, because if you spot a really talented youngster and you know your industry, and you can see they just need $10,000, and you can say, look, here's $10,000.
And what will the publisher do? He will mainly try to benefit from it himself.
If he's an asshole, but he doesn't have to. and decent publisher.
If they are doing assholes, I mean, they are not.
I've worked with loads of decent publishers. They're not all horrible. That's the point. That's what publishing is.
But now, spotting the talent, working with it. It's not about being an asshole, obviously, but they want to make a living themselves. And the reality is that they are. To then pay them back the $10,000. Or maybe $11,000.
Do you think that's all they need it for right now? Do you know, like, I want a publisher, A, to give us an advance against the game we're selling them, B, to give me marketing, to pay for the marketing money and manage that stuff, and all the relationships with the platform holders, especially if you've got a cross-platform game. I think we're really missing publishers right now. I think that
there's certainly purpose for that. I'm not disagreeing at all.
I got a question for you, John. Just about because you did Sensible Soccer and whatnot, and obviously you got paid for that and everything, right? I didn't have Sensible Soccer. I had Keith Van Oren's Pro Soccer, which is also Sensible Soccer.
That was the one before.
Yeah.
Cool.
So now
I've never seen that box, man. I've never seen that.
Really?
Box. No.
Yeah, it's
very nice.
The exact same game. It's the exact same game.
Like Pro Soccer,
Yeah. So this being kind of like just repackaging one. Did they reimburse you for this as well, or did they just repackage it and sell it, and you didn't have anything to do with it?
No. Basically, I mean, what my business is and has been since I was young, we create games, and the important thing for anyone to know, they made a game. They own the IP of that game. No one can touch you unless it's on a piece of paper, which gives rights away. And we were lucky enough relatively early. Actually, the first few contracts we signed were terrible. And often, a couple of times we didn't get paid any royalties, but no one totally fleeced us. So basically, you sign a deal which says you can have this game on this platform for this amount of years in these territories, and give us an advance of X thousand pounds, dollars, whatever, and it's an advance against 20%, 30%, 50%, whatever the number is of the royalties. And the main game to play is what those numbers are, like what's the advance and what's the percentage to you, you know, and then other things like, did the manufacturing costs come off the top, or did the other licensing costs, or whatever they might be. But that's something which I'm, as a professionally, that's what I do best, because I've done it the most time from the business side, you know. So yeah, no, I mean, we've worked with maybe, I don't know, I've worked with 20 publishers in my life maybe, and some of them are bad, but the majority have been okay. But I won't sign with the publisher unless I get an advance up front. If you don't get an advance up front, then you're in trouble, because internally, if you say give us $100,000 up front, they've got to justify spending that money internally so they've got a market to get some of the money back. If you give it to them for free, you don't get it back. So yeah, I mean, I'm very comfortable with this publishing model. Maybe that's why I'm saying these things. I've done it for 30 plus years now. I'm still doing it today, you know.
The downside of that model, however, is also that I know a lot of developers who mainly the only money they ever make with a game is that upfront payment, and never really get to the point where they recoup it, and that incentivizes a bad business practice as well. That the developer is not incentivized to continue development of his game, because it's better for him to just move on to the next product.
What do you mean continue it?
Well, make updates, improve it, just like now what we do now on Steam. I mean, when we release a game, it's really just a platform, and we are improving it over like many years.
I know what you mean.
Building from it all the time. We are directly benefiting from the sale of every single game. And when you have such a deal with a publisher, that is most of the time not the case. The developer in the end may get some money, but 9 out of 10 never do. It's because they don't reach that point.
I would say that with our games, two-thirds, 66%, we got royalty streams coming through from them.
Yeah.
I would also say there's a massive downside on the games as a service. You know, I mean, the old days, right the way through, Whizball, Parallax, Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit, Microprose Soccer, which AJ just showed then, 3D Tennis, Megalomania, Sensible Soccer, Cannon Fodder, WizKid, Cannon Fodder 2, Sensible Golf, Sensible World of Soccer. They went in a box, and we didn't have to do any more work. And I missed that time more than anything in the world. Yeah. We killed ourselves to make great games. And then they were gone, and then they just at the duplicators. Now it's a nightmare. Now you put a game out, 1 year after it's out, someone's put a new version of some operating system, and it doesn't work anymore, and you got to update it, or you got to. It's honestly, it's a nightmare. I mean, it's bad enough.
Does it benefit the developers too? Because now games are put out there, like you said, you busted your ass and then you put out a game and it was done. Now games go out and it's like early beta, it's early release, and then you expect that it's going to need to get fixed. There's going to be bugs. There's going to be problems. Yeah. So now it's like you would get you'd get paid, you'd walk away, you're done. The developers now, they still have to work on this thing perpetually until it's either finished or fixed or whatever.
Well, there's also another problem, that their ability to fix bugs before release is awful at the moment. I mean, it's like it's 2% of what it used to be. Like, I can't believe how buggy software is when it goes out. Our games went out with virtually 0 bugs. That's another reason we were successful. Very, very few errors. Now it's common practice to go up with bugs, and maybe it's because, like you say, they know they've got this long run to do. But it's almost like a lazy way of working. No one will put out a hit album with like, oh, we didn't quite get the horn section right. Don't worry, we'll do it again.
Do it later. Yeah.
Come on.
Sorry, I have to interrupt you because I think our official Gamescom live stream time is over. We have managed to get all the way to the end. I think it's 2 a.m. now in Germany. But we can switch over to Twitch, I think, and keep talking, right, Patrick?
That's correct. Please wait some seconds. thank you for all of the Gamescom channel who visit us. We now switch to Twitch, retro_compot. I hope it works, and we stay there open end again. Thanks a lot, and you can stay here in Zoom. I hope we get it in some seconds.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.